Here's what I need you to do. First, before we get started, go ahead and find a new clean section of your binder or your notebook. Find a nice clean page and put the header at the top, 2A. This will be our cycle that we're working on right now. This will just help you keep track of where we are in the year when you write these terms down. So this is cycle 2A, and in 2A we are dealing with positive and negative integers. So for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be dealing with positive and negative integers. Again, this goes with the standard 6.ns.1. So go ahead and add that to the top of your page. And then if you can, go ahead and 2 per page, I'd like you to make a little box like this. So you're going to make a box, you're going to leave a spot at the top for your vocabulary term, you're going to have a spot for your definition, an example, and a real world example. So this will be kind of our math example. This will be something from the real world that kind of goes with what we're doing. So you will need 5 of those. So I can fit about 2 per page. My boxes are about 9 to 10 lines long. So you can see, there we go. So if you would like to go through and go ahead and make 5 of these boxes on your pages, pause this video, and then when you're ready, we'll get going with our first vocabulary term. All right, so if you are ready to go on with the first vocabulary term for today, remember, we started by going to our online textbook, and we are on the glossary. So if you haven't watched that video, please go back and do so you can go ahead and find your glossary. And in the glossary, we are going to be looking up our terms. So I have already written the terms in the boxes here. You just need to find these in the glossary. So our first word is going to be integer. I-N-T-E-G-E-R, an integer. And if I look that up on the glossary from our textbook, it says that an integer is any number from the set It gives the example. So when you see a set, you're going to see some brackets. Dot, dot, dot. -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, dot, dot, dot. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the set. And then it says where dot, dot, dot means continues without end. So again, an integer is any number from this set. -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because these dot, dot, dots mean that we're going to continue without end. So as you notice here, all these numbers are what we would call, well, are whole numbers. You don't see any decimals and you don't see any fractions. So the numbers that you've dealt with since kindergarten, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, on and on and on, all the way into infinity. These are our integers. If you start getting into decimals or fractions, they would not be considered an integer. Also, though, you're seeing some new numbers here for the first time, possibly some of you. We have -1. -2, -3, -4, on into infinity that way, -5, -6, -7, on and on without end. So these numbers will continue literally on a line, both directions, on into infinity. You can just keep writing numbers. So let's say an example here might be -23 or positive, and when we write a positive, we don't have to put any type of plus or minus here. But let's say the number 15. These are whole numbers. No fractions or decimals. That's just for me to remember. But so examples of this would be negative anything. So -23 or positive, which we just write as our regular number, the number 15. These are whole numbers, no fractions or decimals. In the real world, well, this would be like, this could be seen as like $5 in your bank account, or -3 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's say it's a really cold morning. These would be numbers that you would see in the real world that would be considered integers. They are whole values. You've got all the parts of whatever thing you are looking at. All right, so that is an integer, guys and gals. Now, let's go on and look up what the book has to say about positive integers. This should be pretty easy, right? So it says that a positive integer is a number that is greater than 0 it can be written without a plus sign. You guys have been writing positive integers almost your whole math career. These are our basic numbers. And again, remember, these are not going to be fractions. So examples, again, you've got any number that you've worked with before, basically, that is not a fraction. So 3,000, or 317. These are all going to be examples of positive integers. They're just the regular numbers that we know. In the real world, we see these more often than we see anything else. Again, today was 55 degrees outside. That would be considered an integer because it's a whole number with no fraction and it is positive. Also, I owe, well, let's see. I got paid in my banking, oh no, here we go. My fantasy sports team scored 138 points today. We'll split fantasy points. So anything that is a positive value and doesn't have any fraction or decimal with it, that is going to be a positive integer. Likewise, negative integers, and I bet you guys can figure this out. If this is the new stuff, a negative integer that is a number that is less than 0. I'm going to put a whole number because that helps me remember. So I'm going to say a whole number that is less than 0. It is written always with a, I bet you guys can figure this out, minus sign. So ladies and gentlemen, you know these when it comes to things like, well, let's just see. Let's start with the numbers. So a number like -4 or -15. In the real world, where you would see this, well, again, if we go back to temperature, we see this all the time, right? It's really, really cold outside. It's below 0, so it's -4 degrees. We'll put centigrade this time because, well, we're math geeks and sometimes we like to do things in different types of temperature scale. Also, we can have -$15 in our bank account. Now we'll talk about how that works as we get going. But a negative integer means that there is less than 0. So it could be anything like a negative value in temperature or any type of debit that you have to pay out. So let's say in my bank account, I had $30, and I spent, let's see, I had $30 and I spent $35. Well, because I spent more than I had in my bank account would be -$5. And then my bank will charge me another $10 because I went over my fee. That's actually pretty nice for a bank. So then I would have -$15 in my account. My account doesn't get back up to $0. That means I can't start having any money to spend past that $0 until I have paid my $15 back. So that's how negative integers work in a nutshell, but we'll get more into that as we go. Likewise, ladies and gentlemen, when we have positives and negatives, of course, we are also going to have opposites. So, opposites are two integers So again, these are going to be whole numbers that represent points on a number line that are the same distance from 0. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, these will be opposite each other on the number line. So if I have my number line here, and I put 0 right in the middle, let's count out 1, 2, and I'm gonna put 3 over here. So here is my positive integer. Well, I went 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. So on the other side of the number line, I'd go 1, 2, 3 spaces, and I would have -3. These guys are going to be opposites of each other. So 3 and -3 would be opposites. Same deal, any two numbers. So -15 and 15, those would be opposites because they're the same distance from 0 on the number line. In the real world, well, let's say I have -$3 in my bank account. I would have to add $3 to get to 0. And then if I added another $3, I would get to $3 positive in my bank account. So as you can see, I'm still moving 3 this way to get to this value. I'm moving 3 from 0 the opposite direction to get to this value. So that's the deal with opposites. Again, we'll talk more about it as we work through. The opposites, basically, you're counting the same distance from 0 on the number line to the left or the right. They will look exactly the same, only one will have a negative in front of it, and one will just be the number itself. Last but not least, absolute value. You probably saw this if you watched the other video. We touched on it just a little bit. But absolute value is the distance between a number. This doesn't have to be an integer this time, even though we are dealing with integers for this set. But any number and 0 on the number line. So for the number, let's say -15, well, between -15 and 0 on the number line, there are 15 spaces. That means the absolute value is 15. Again, in the real world, let's say I have $15 in my bank account. This would be the opposite of my -15 over here. If I have $15 in my bank account, that means it would take me $15. I would have to lose all $15. I'd have to go $15 backwards in order to get to 0. So I am 15 spaces away. Again, my absolute value is 0. Or sorry, it's 15, because I'm 15 spots on the number line away from 0. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for your vocab for this lesson. So again, remember, absolute 0 is just the distance you are away from 0 on the number line. So again, 15 and -15, opposites, they will have the same absolute value because they're both 15 spaces, just in opposite directions on the number line. Again, those are opposites. Negative integers, that would be like your -15. Again, these are whole numbers. Positive integers, that would be your +15 we just worked on. And an integer is basically any whole number.